To grasp the rise and fall of the Empire, one must not look to the stars, but to the world beneath their feet. Beneath the dazzling lights of the Coruscant skyline lies a truth often obscured by the glimmer of durasteel towers and the polished faces of senatorial halls. It is a world that was never slept, a city-planet whose very foundations shaped the fates of trillions. But how vital was Coruscant, really, to the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire? Was it just the seat of power, or the beating heart of a grand machine built on control, deception, and desperation? To understand, we must descend, not just into its deepest levels, but through its darkest chapters. Let us begin. Before it became the epicenter of galactic control, Coruscant had already laid the groundwork for absolute influence. Also known as the Imperial Senate and later Republic City, Coruscant was an ecumenopolis, a planet entirely covered in urban development. Located in the core worlds at galactic coordinates 000, Coruscant was literally the reference point for all navigational maps. From ancient times, it was considered the political and cultural heartbeat of the galaxy. It wasn't just the capital of the Galactic Republic, it was the capital of galactic civilization itself. Even before the Empire, Coruscant was already more than a world. It was a symbol. Control Coruscant, and you controlled perception. You controlled legitimacy. But how did this symbolism transform into something far more dangerous? The Clone Wars did not begin on Coruscant, but they were won and lost there. As the Separatist crisis intensified, it was in the chambers of the Galactic Senate that Supreme Chancellor Palpatine was granted emergency powers. The catalyst? The Battle of Geonosis. The justification? Fear, chaos, and a promise of safety. It was on Coruscant that the Grand Army of the Republic was commissioned. The military-industrial machine that fueled the war was orchestrated from the highest echelons of the planet's government districts, and the war's narrative was shaped by HoloNet broadcasts pumped out from its orbital arrays. More subtly, Coruscant became a place of transformation. Behind the doors of Palpatine's office, Jedi Master Anakin Skywalker was manipulated. In the shadows of its lower levels, Count Dooku's agents infiltrated civilian networks. The Clone Wars weren't just fought in the Outer Rim. They were administered, debated, and stage managed from Coruscant. But with each passing vote and every wartime decree, Coruscant moved closer to shedding its mask of democracy. No event in Coruscant's history exemplifies its symbolic power more than the fall of the Jedi Temple. Order 66 was executed across the stars, but it was an assault on the Jedi Temple, right in the center of Galactic City, that finalized the betrayal. The temple had stood for thousands of years. It wasn't just a building, it was the spiritual and political bastion of Jedi influence, and it fell in a single night. As Anakin Skywalker, now Darth Vader, led the 501st Legion up the temple steps, the fate of the galaxy was sealed. The Jedi were no longer peacekeepers, they were branded traitors, and Coruscant, the heart of the Republic, became the dagger that cut them down. What happened next was as swift as it was chilling. In the Galactic Senate chamber, as Palpatine stood before the delegations of thousands of star systems, he declared the Republic's transformation into the first Galactic Empire. With thunderous applause, the fall of democracy was met not with resistance, but celebration. This moment didn't happen on a battlefield or within the wreckage of a separatist holdout. It happened in a domed hall of glass and durasteel, on Coruscant, where power had been centralized, concentrated, and finally consumed. Palpatine didn't need to seize the galaxy. he made the galaxy ask him to take it. And it happened right there, on the marble floors of Coruscant's political heart. Once the capital of hope, Coruscant was renamed Imperial Center, a subtle but telling rebranding. Gone were the blue banners of the Republic. In their place, the cold insignia of the Empire spread like frost. The Jedi Temple? Gutted and rebuilt into the Imperial Palace. The Senate? Reduced to a puppet show, muzzled and neutered under Palpatine's will. The HoloNet? Now tightly monitored and curated, ensuring the narrative always favoured Imperial interests. Coruscant had become a surveillance state. ISB agents walked the streets. Holocams blinked on every corner. Fear replaced debate. Conformity replaced diversity. Yet the appearance of order made resistance difficult. To the average citizen, Coruscant still looked prosperous, still gleamed in the night. But beneath the glimmering skyline, whispers grew. If the surface of Coruscant belonged to the Empire, who claimed the shadows far below? To truly understand Coruscant's complexity, you have to descend. Beneath the planet's sky-high spires lies a world entirely different. A world of crime syndicates, forgotten populations, and crumbling infrastructure. Nowhere embodied this more than level 1313, a notorious district located deep within the underworld, far removed from sunlight, justice, or hope. Once considered the setting for a cancelled video game, level 1313 has since become canon-adjacent lore that reflects the brutal truths about Coruscant's class division. During the Empire's reign, the lower levels became a breeding ground for unrest. The deeper you went, the more Imperial control thinned. This was where the seeds of rebellion began to fester. Black market networks flourished. Information brokers passed secrets through sewer grates. Some even claimed rogue Jedi survived down here, cloaked in rags, hiding from the Emperor's wrath. The surface of Coruscant may have belonged to Palpatine, but the depths belong to the forgotten, and the forgotten do not stay silent forever. The Empire believed Coruscant was its greatest fortress, but what if that was its greatest vulnerability? While the core of the rebellion operated from the Outer Rim worlds like Yavin 4 and Dantooine, the early resistance to the Empire didn't begin on distant planets. It began within Coruscant's own veins. Senators like Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and even Padme Amidala prior to her death planted the seeds of dissent right in the heart of the Imperial machine. Meetings held behind closed doors in Coruscant's diplomatic halls became the birthplace of what would become the Alliance to Restore the Republic. Even as Palpatine expanded his influence, cracks began to form. Imperial overreach created tension. The imprisonment and torture of innocent civilians in the sublevels led to uprisings. Coruscant's soul was becoming restless. Bail Organa once said, "We'll need every system, every world, every voice, especially the ones closest to Palpatine, to turn the tide." And Coruscant was listening. With the recent season of Andor, we also see how Luton Rail started the rebellion from Coruscant and delivered some of the most vital pieces of information right from the heart of the Empire. Though the Emperor held court on countless worlds, it was Coruscant that became his lair, both physically and metaphysically. He no longer resided in the Senate, nor even in public view. Palpatine withdrew to the Imperial Palace, a grotesque looming structure erected over the ruins of the Jedi Temple. The symbolism was exacting. The old guardians of peace were now buried beneath his iron will. The palace itself, according to canon and legend sources, were infused with dark side architecture, intimidating, angular, and completely void of organic warmth. The public seldom saw the Emperor. His image was broadcast, but his presence became mythic, almost divine. He ruled through fear, ambiguity, and absence. Coruscant, once the most connected city in the galaxy, became a prison of isolation, where even high-ranking Moffs and governors rarely earned audience with the Emperor. It was no longer the capital of democracy. It was the throne of a god emperor. But gods, even in towers of durasteel, are not untouchable. In the years leading up to the Battle of Yavin, the Senate technically still existed, but it had become a ceremonial farce, stripped of power, riddled with fear, and reduced to parroting imperial decrees. Then came the moment that shattered illusion. In A New Hope, after learning of the Death Star's operational readiness, Palpatine dissolved the Senate entirely, an act heard across the galaxy with stunned horror. No more representation, no more pretense. The Empire was absolute. Mon Mothma had made her historic speech, broadcast across subspace relays, declaring open rebellion against the Empire. Though she had already fled Coruscant, her movements had root there, with operatives who had quietly gathered intelligence, forged alliances, and seeded hope. With the Senate gone, the illusion of order collapsed, and Coruscant's people, many of them, began to remember what freedom once looked like. The throne world did not fall in fire. It cracked slowly until it could no longer bear the weight of tyranny. When Darth Vader killed the Emperor at Endor, the Death Star exploded, but Coruscant remained. At first, the Empire still held, but the myth was broken. As the New Republic grew in strength and reclaimed world after world, unrest on Coruscant boiled over. In Star Wars Aftermath, it's confirmed that massive uprisings broke out in the capital. Statues of the Emperor were torn down. Stormtroopers were assaulted in the streets. The Imperial Security Bureau lost control, and resistance cells surged from the underworld to the skyline. Eventually, the New Republic captured Coruscant, but they chose not to use it as their capital, wary of repeating the Empire's centralized control. Instead, Chandrila and later Hosnian Prime became new seats of power. Coruscant, once the jewel of galactic control, was now a fractured symbol, a cautionary tale, a place that had seen everything: birth, death, betrayal, and hope. So how important was Coruscant to the rise and fall of the Empire? It was everything. The Empire didn't just rule from Coruscant. It was born in it, hardened by it, and ultimately undone by it. It was the battlefield of ideas, the forge of fear, the prison of power, and the shadowed cradle of rebellion. The story of Coruscant is the story of the galaxy itself. When it gleamed, the Republic thrived. When it darkened, the Empire rose. And when the people remembered what freedom truly meant, the skyline burned with rebellion. But what do you think? Should the rebellion have reclaimed Coruscant as the heart of the New Republic? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, like, subscribe, and join us next week for another deep dive into the archives. Thanks for watching.